morning sun had barely climbed above the glass towers of the city when everything changed for Adrian Cole. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day, another quiet morning of cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, and trying to survive one more week as a single father doing whatever work he could find. Adrian had spent years rebuilding his life after losing almost everything. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving him alone to raise a 6-year-old daughter, Maya. Since then, every day had been a battle between exhaustion and determination. But on that particular morning, one unexpected moment inside a luxurious office building would turn his entire world upside down. Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment to comment, share, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories if you believe that kindness and second chances can truly change lives. Adrian arrived early that day, pushing his small janitor cart through the marble lobby of one of the most powerful corporate headquarters in the city. The building itself felt like another world compared to the tiny apartment where he and Maya lived. The floors gleamed like mirrors, the ceiling stretched impossibly high, and the air smelled faintly of polished wood and expensive perfume. For Adrian, this place wasn't glamorous. It was simply another job. Temporary, underpaid, but necessary. His daughter had a school trip coming up that week, and she had asked him the night before she could go. The cost wasn't much for most families, but for Adrian it meant deciding whether to skip groceries for a few days. Still, he had smiled and told her they would figure out. Seeing her happy was the only thing that kept him moving forward. That morning, the office floors were unusually quiet. Most executives wouldn't arrive for another hour. Adrian carefully pushed his cart down the hallway on the 42nd floor, following the cleaning schedule given to him by the building supervisor. As he approached the corner office at the end of the corridor, he noticed the door slightly open. Normally, those offices were locked during cleaning hours, but assuming someone had simply forgotten to close it properly, Adrian gently pushed the door open to tidy up quickly before anyone arrived. What he saw inside made him freeze. Standing near the massive window overlooking the city skyline was a woman who looked completely out of place in that moment. Her posture was tense, her hands pressed against the glass as if she were trying to steady herself. She wore an elegant navy suit, the kind only powerful executives seemed to wear, but her shoulders trembled slightly as though she was carrying a weight far heavier than her position. Adrian instantly realized he had walked into a private moment. The woman turned quickly, clearly startled to see someone there. Her expression carried the sharp confidence of someone used to commanding entire boardrooms, yet her eyes revealed something different, something fragile. Her name, though Adrian didn't know it yet, was Cassandra Vale. She was a billionaire CEO who owned an entire company that operated inside that building, and she had arrived earlier than usual that morning because the previous night had nearly broken her. Despite running a global empire worth billions, Cassandra had spent months dealing with ruthless investors threatening to push her out of her own company. Her father had built the corporation from nothing, and when he passed away, she had taken over with fierce determination to protect his legacy. But the pressure had become unbearable. For the first time in years, she had come into the office before sunrise simply to gather herself in silence. Now a janitor stood awkwardly in the doorway. Adrian quickly lowered his eyes and stepped backward, apologizing softly as he prepared to leave. The last thing he wanted was trouble at work. Losing this job would mean losing the fragile stability he had fought so hard to build for Maya. But something unexpected happened. Instead of dismissing him, Cassandra paused. She noticed the worn shoes, the careful way he held his cleaning cart, and the tired look in his face. The kind of exhaustion that didn't come from one bad night, but from years of struggle. Most people in her world barely noticed workers like him. Yet in that strange, quiet moment, she did. Adrian simply nodded politely and began cleaning the room as quickly and quietly as possible, trying not to disturb her again. But as he worked, something about the atmosphere shifted. The tension in the room softened slightly. Perhaps it was because Adrian treated the space with quiet respect instead of nervous panic. Or maybe it was because, for the first time that morning, Cassandra realized someone else in the building had worries far heavier than corporate profits. A few minutes later, as Adrian wiped the desk, a small photograph slipped from the corner of his cleaning cart and landed on the floor. He quickly picked it up, But Cassandra had already noticed. It was a simple photo of a little girl with bright eyes and a messy ponytail, smiling as she held a handmade drawing. Maya, for reasons she didn't fully understand, Cassandra asked about the photo. Adrian explained briefly that she was his daughter and that she was the reason he worked every job he could find. He spoke with quiet pride, though there was a trace of worry in his voice when he mentioned her upcoming school trip. Cassandra listened silently. The strange thing was that Adrian never complained. He didn't speak about hardship with bitterness. Instead, he talked about Maya's love for drawing, her dream of becoming an artist, and how she believed her father could fix anything. That simple belief, he admitted, was the only thing that kept him going. Something about his words struck deeply within Cassandra. For months, she had been surrounded by advisors, lawyers, investors, and executives, people who spoke only in numbers and strategies. Yet here was a man who had almost nothing, but who carried a quiet strength stronger than many billionaires she knew. When Adrian finished cleaning the office, he politely nodded again and left. He assumed that would be the end of it, but the encounter stayed with Cassandra all day. During board meetings, negotiations, and tense phone calls with investors, her mind kept returning to that photograph and the way Adrian had spoken about his daughter. That evening, she asked the building supervisor about the janitor who had been cleaning the executive floor. The answer surprised her. Adrian Cole wasn't even supposed to be assigned to that floor. He had simply volunteered to take the early shift because it paid a few extra dollars. Over the next few days, Cassandra began quietly observing. She noticed how Adrian always arrived early and left late. She noticed how he helped other workers without expecting anything in return. She noticed the way he carefully saved leftover cafeteria food to bring home for his daughter. Most people would never have seen those details, but she did. Then something happened that changed everything. One afternoon, Cassandra happened to pass through the lobby just as Adrian was finishing his shift. In his hands was a small envelope from Maya's school. The expression on his face told the whole story before he even opened it. The payment deadline for the trip had passed. He folded the letter slowly and placed it in his pocket, trying to hide the disappointment. That moment stayed with Cassandra long after she returned to her office. The next morning, Adrian arrived at work expecting another normal day. Instead, he was called upstairs to the executive floor. His heart raced as he walked through a quiet hallway, wondering if he had accidentally done something wrong. Losing this job would devastate everything he had worked for. When he entered the office, Cassandra greeted him calmly. What happened next felt unreal to Adrian. Cassandra explained that she had spent years building a company designed to change industries, yet she had recently realized she had overlooked something simple but important: the people who quietly kept everything running behind the scenes. She told him that meeting him had reminded her why her father started the company in the first place: to create opportunities for hard-working people. Then she offered him something he never expected: a permanent position managing building operations for the entire headquarters. The job came with stability, benefits, and a salary that would finally allow Adrian to give Maya the life she deserved. Adrian could barely believe what he was hearing. But Cassandra wasn't finished. She also arranged a scholarship fund for employees' children, starting with covering Maya's school trip and future education support. The impact of that decision rippled through the company. Employees who had once felt invisible suddenly felt valued. Productivity increased. Loyalty strengthened. And for Cassandra, the company began to feel less like a battlefield and more like the legacy her father had dreamed of. As for Adrian, his life slowly transformed. He still arrived early each morning, but now he walked through the building not as a temporary worker struggling to survive, but as someone trusted to help lead. Most importantly, Maya finally took that school trip she had dreamed about. The drawing she brought home afterward showed 2 tall buildings, a smiling little girl, and her father standing proudly beside her. Near the bottom of the page, she had written in big, colorful letters, "My dad is my hero." If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories so more people can experience stories about hope, kindness, and second chances. And before we reach the ending, here's a special request. Comment the word kindness below if you believe one small act can truly change someone's life.